Warning. This video contains themes and visual depictions of domestic violence, abuse, and trauma that may be disturbing and distressing to some viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. I will now be reading a prepared script, for I am very bad at my words and I want to make sure I communicate this information as effectively as possible. Hi guys, my name is Trinity Jacques Omdahl, though most of you know me by Winter. I don't come in here often to discuss the more private details of my personal life, but I feel called to make this video to shed some light on some of the horrific events that have taken place over the last 3 years of my life. As some of you may know, I spent the better part of that time married to an Aslan Omdahl, or better known as Azlin, or FenrisFloral in the music community. I was not going to speak on our relationship and its end, but I was made aware that there is a lot of grave misinformation going around spread by Aslan himself. I would like to forward this video by saying that I am in no way looking for sympathy or trying to get revenge, for I do not have a vengeful heart. As a Christian, I do not believe it's my place to judge others or enact justice. That is only a job that God can do. It is only my job to forgive him, as I have done, and share my perspective in the hopes that the truth may be revealed in as much clarity as I can muster. I also do not believe that people are all good or all bad. The world is not that black and white. Everyone is afforded the grace of salvation, and this even applies to my ex-husband now. I am not a perfect victim, and I have done a lot in my life that I am very ashamed of. However, I work every day to learn and to grow from my past, to better myself for my future. Full disclosure, there are a lot of details I will not be going into depth about, either due to irrelevance or my poor memory, which is caused by both a heavy marijuana addiction and trauma. So I thank you guys all in advance for your time. I met Aslan on Facebook dating in January of 2024. Our relationship was very passionate and fast-paced from the beginning. I was at one of the lowest points of my life. I had dropped out of college for the second time. I had just stopped working. I was severely depressed and lacking purpose. And having BPD, I cut out most of the people I cared about the most. I had never felt more alone in my life, and talking with him felt very natural. He became the sole source of light in my life. I fell in love almost immediately. Less than a month into us talking, I made the decision to drive across the country from Louisiana to North Dakota and back. When we both arrived back in Louisiana, he stayed with me for 2 weeks, and then I paid for him a plane ticket to go back home. During this time, we had an amazing time, and I felt in my heart that he was the one. We continued our online relationship for about 2 months before we made the decision to live together in Louisiana that March. All was well at first. I was introduced by him to God, something that I will always and forever be grateful for. And without God, I would not have survived the remainder of this story. I was saved, I was no longer depressed, and there was a lot in my life that I began to fix, from my perspective to my physical self and financial things as well. And I was probably the happiest I had ever been in my life up till that point. Alright, so trigger warning, we're about to get into some of the heavier stuff now. The violence began in May of that year. We got into a pretty heated argument. I don't remember what it was about. It's not very important, but it basically led to him pushing me to the ground. And my head hit the floor, and I had to get staples in the back of my head, about right here. And immediately, as soon as he saw like that I was bleeding and that my head hit the floor that hard, he felt very remorseful. When Aslan would get like this, it would almost be like a switch was flipped in his brain. It was like you could see the light leaving his eyes and coming back, like a switch flipping on and off, on and off, on and off. It was almost like a willing possession, a physical inviting of the demons into and out of his body. I forgave him for this because I saw it as a misunderstanding and an accident and a essentially sickness that he could be cured from. For the longest, that is how I saw most of our arguments and most of the physicality. It was the cause of possession, which is something that he could be released from by the power of God. We continued our relationship and got engaged later that month. And we made the decision to move in together in North Dakota so that we could be closer to his family, who were a huge support system to us at this time. I will forever be grateful for the impact that they had on our lives. They genuinely did save us at points where we had no one else. Around this time, I got a message from his ex, who will be tagged in the description of this video, telling me about her past with him. You can find a video on her page going into further detail about that. While I believed her, I still chose to stay with him because I felt that we were on a path of bettering ourselves. He expressed remorse for putting her through those things, and I believe that he could change. If you're seeing this, Toria, I want to apologize for being so dismissive to you when all you were trying to do was inform, protect, and prevent me from going through some of the same things you did. As I said, I am not a perfect victim, and I am very happy to see you improving your life and moving forward in peace, and I absolutely wish you nothing but the best. There were a few other instances of physicality around this time, but I consistently made the decision to forgive and try to progress. I was immensely locked in. We finally moved in together in North Dakota mid-June, and we got baptized together. And in that same river where we got baptized, we got married that July. And during this time, I really felt the presence of God the strongest in my life. The violence had almost completely stopped, basically had completely stopped for months at this point, from that end of May to about August. And I believe that all of the hard work that we had put in had finally paid off. Azlin was a man who loved very deeply and was insanely loyal to his friends, and most of the time to people who really didn't deserve it. I could tell, like me, he was broken and searching for love in all the wrong places. He made a very close friend around this time that he opened up to about our violent past and how we improved from the help from God. It was his testimony. And unfortunately, they got into a very bad argument one day, and this friend betrayed him and told a lot of other people that knew him the things that Aslan told him in confidentiality. This broke Aslan's heart and his trust, and He fell into a very deep depression, and this is when the violence in our relationship began again. There were multiple instances where I had called the cops just to end the fighting. One of which time I even told them it was my fault, that I was having a PTSD episode and that I put my hands on him. And I believe it was around this point where I started fighting back. In the past, I would consider myself a pacifist. There was a situation where even a few of my foster sisters ganged up on me, and I let them beat me up rather than fighting back. Originally, I was like this with my ex-husband as well, but once I saw that fighting back and having the ability to hurt him had an effect on him, it became an option I fell to every time. Basically, if you think about it this way, in a fight or flight response, I was a freezer, and I shifted from being a freezer to a fighter. This unfortunately gave him ammunition to blame me for the violence in our relationship. It shifted from him just throwing hands with me to him throwing things at me until he would get a reaction out of me, or saying things and getting within inches of my face, point where he's spitting on me and just like literally bumping noses with me. And I would eventually like push him or react in some kind of way physically. And this invitation was always used as the "she started it" excuse. I no longer felt like the victim because I felt like I became the assailant. He was an expert manipulator. Eventually, we began to seek counseling through our church irregularly, which would work until it didn't. So the violence eventually became weekly, then daily, and I eventually confided in a few peers about the situation at work, so I could get off time to recover from the worst ones. I would show up to work bleeding, and even one time with my thumb dislocated, just so that they would know I was telling the truth. The hotel I was working at offered me help multiple times, even to the point of giving me respite for a few weeks, just so I could escape him. But I always wound up back with him, either through forgiveness or a promise to change, or just simply financially not being able to afford being away from him. Around January of 2025, he wound up in jail for the first time on his first DV charge after a fight with his dad, where I wound up calling the cops. And I really did believe this was the end of our relationships. He got out a few days later and expressed to me in letters how much jail had changed him and how much he had grown, and how he felt so remorseful and his eyes were really opened to the consequences of his anger. So I decided to give him one last chance. Finally, around May of 2025, after countless instances of violence, weapons being held at me, and my life being threatened, my grandmother helped me move back to Louisiana. And I still did not believe that this was the end of our marriage. I believed that we needed the separation to stop the physical fighting, and to have time apart so that we could fix ourselves and that eventually we would come back together. I began going to church more regularly and making money, and during this time I kept in constant contact with Azlin, and he would tell me about the progress he was making, and he would be as agreeable as possible to try to work things out with me. By July, he wound up moving back down to Louisiana again, and at this point, financially, we were struggling, and I convinced myself that this would be for the best. Against the advice of many, I thought it'd be easier to do this together rather than being apart and both of us trying to figure it out. So we moved into a motel and began the second year of our life together. Literally, the day after he moved back in, I found out about multiple occasions of micro cheating and virtual cheating. And this, of course, almost immediately opened the door to violence being introduced in our lives again. It wasn't long before I called the police and had him removed from my room, and he wound up getting another room at that same motel. Eventually, within like 2 or 3 weeks, we couldn't afford this lifestyle anymore, so we wound up moving back in together. And the violence did become less often at this point, but would still occasionally happen. We got a better place at a different motel that October, and things went about as usual with occasions of violence, until one particularly bad fight that January. And I, with the help of his parents who were visiting at the time, kicked him out. And this was the first time he openly admitted to making an attempt on my life.
It's all my fault for getting to this point!
Regardless?
Can you think what a woman can possibly do to a man to make him drive to the point of wanting to fucking kill her?
February of that year, 2026, this year, I found an apartment with a roommate that I would be able to move in with. The day after I moved, I went on a vacation with my mother, who up to this point I did not have very much contact with. I spent a good bit of my childhood in foster care, and we had kind of a rough history from the little bit of time that I did live with her. So this was our first real time bonding since being adults, and honestly, it was one of the best experiences I had had with her. We were able to really talk about the past, let things go, let forgiveness happen, and move forward to really trying to have a mother-daughter connection. That was pretty much the entire purpose of me going, was wanting to rebuild things with my mom. And being newly single, I took a lot of pictures of my trip and I uploaded them to my new socials because I deleted all of my old socials once I had gotten married. And for the first time in those 2 years, I felt truly safe and free, without the need to fill a hole in my life like I felt in the past. God had become that filler for me. I didn't feel the need to fill it with men or even a parent figure. It's like God was everything I needed. I had him, I had housing, and I felt like my life and situation were both improving. I felt free. And post-trip, my husband or ex-husband came to pick me up. I contracted the flu, and he caught it from exposure to me thereafter. So now we're about to get really specific. On the day he was arrested, a few days after my return from my trip, I went to bring him some medication. He had grown resentment from me, from the content I was posting on my social media and the happiness I had achieved being away from him. He felt it was unfair that I get to be happy while he was stuck in his apartment at that motel with a roommate he did not want and was struggling due to his lack of employment. When I got there to bring him the medication, he was very rude and very short with me. So I decided to grab the things that I so thoughtfully decided to bring over to him and leave because I was having enough of it. This really angered him, me taking the stuff instead of just walking out the door, and he walked up on me with aggression. I grabbed a water bottle and I splashed it in his face, and he in return grabbed the water bottle from my hands and poured it all over me. I did not react. I took a breath, and started to just walk out the door, just grab my purse, leave. Everything I had brought for him, at that point it was whatever, I was just going to leave and walk out the door. This is when he attacked me in an effort to get me to stop leaving. He pinned me down and broke my nose, stopping for a second when he saw blood. As I said earlier, the switch would flip. Light, no light. I begged him to just let me go, to stop hurting me, and these words in particular triggered him. The light left his eyes as he yelled, "Stop hurting me!" Like, because he was so hurt by me leaving. He began to choke me, stopping in intervals and apologizing before verbally making the commitment to kill me. Then himself, he was like, "I'm going to kill you and kill myself." He choked me until I passed out. And I don't know how long I was out for, but I remember waking up with him on top of me and begging me to wake up and apologizing. I sat up slowly and I reassured him that everything was okay and that I just wanted to leave and go to sleep. I just wanted to go home, go to sleep. I promised him that I would not call the police and that I was just tired of fighting and wanted to go home. He got off of me, grabbed the toaster from the kitchen, and locked himself in the bathroom. When he did this, I decided to leave, and I drove across the street and immediately called the police. I was covered in my own blood and feces because the stress of the situation literally made me poop myself. And after giving a statement to the police, he was immediately arrested. And he stayed in jail until his court date, 90 days later, which I unfortunately missed because of late notice. They gave me the notice of court that Friday, court was that Tuesday, and it came up so fast that I missed it. I honestly was very back and forth up to this point if I wanted to work with prosecutors, because while I saw what he did as wrong and I thought he deserved to be in jail, obviously that's why I called the police, I did not think he deserved the rest of his life being thrown away, because as I said, I believe in redemption. I believe everybody has the ability to change. So I honestly see it as the mercy of God himself that he got out that easily on a felony DV charge. I kept feeling a sign from God to just put my hands up with the situation and to let it go, to just no longer have an effect on what happens in his life, and to put it in God's hands and to let him decide what happens with his life from now on. So I feel like it was a direct answer to a prayer. He was released on time served and 2 years probation. After being released, he made a TikTok with several poem-like posts that were indicated to be addressed towards me. After making one last post titled The End, he deleted the account and revamped a new account promoting his old music that he made about our relationship. Eventually, he deleted those posts too and focused his content more towards God and relationship advice. He, to this day, plays the role of changing and taking accountability, but this, however, is no more than a blasphemous front, a direct lie on God's name. And I do not say blasphemous lightly, because that was directly confirmed by a message I received from an old friend of his. This is totally avoiding accountability and blame shifting to me. He is a pathological liar and a manipulator. He didn't hold a job for the majority of our relationship, which left me in terrible financial shape. And he had very heavy addictions to cocaine and marijuana that transferred to me, and I have since been freed from since leaving him. As I said, I am not the perfect victim, but I cannot let these lies impact the people whose lives he's still in. I believe even now that he has the chance to change and that God can do some real work in him to lead him towards redemption and salvation. But it really does start with admitting your wrongs and changing. And now they're all on the table, and he cannot lie about it. So I'd like to conclude this video by wishing my ex growth, and I hope he can find a way to rid himself of these demons and become the man that he pretends to be. I truly do believe that he has the potential to change if he allows God to really work in his life, and I am so sorry to all the people that I have hurt in my poor decision making. And I am working harder now, more now than ever, to grow and try to better myself. I forgive him for all the hurt he personally caused me, but I have moved on with my life, and hopefully using this experience I can make better decisions in the future. So if you watch my story all the way to the end, I would like to thank you for your time, and I would like to thank the people who have specifically stuck with me through this journey, even when I was not loyal to them. I love you guys more than you could ever know, and I appreciate you guys so, so much. God bless you all. Peace.